fast forward 7-8 years is shooting heroin.
Virtual reality is hitting us everywhere in this world now, even in recovery.
They may get sick and they'll wake up. Now, they die.
Success is important, but significance is really where we all shine. Friends, today I have Andrew Sossin on the podcast. He's a co-founder of Recovery Unplugged and is just doing a lot of great things in the world, so I wanted to share his story. Andrew, thanks for joining us today.
Thank you so much for having me, Jen. I'm glad that Justin introduced us.
Yes, definitely. Okay, so how did Recovery Unplugged come to be?
About, 15 or so years ago, my wife and I grew up knowing my wife since we were in middle school, high school, college. We were just friends. But several members of her family were struggling as long as I'd known her. And so about 15 years ago or so, we just found ourselves paying for lots of people to go to rehab. And then about a dozen years ago, a little less, I was coming back from Fiji from a Tony Robbins event, making a comment that it'd be cheaper for myself to, cheaper to open up a treatment center than keep paying for other ones. And my friend said, well, you can't say something like that after going to a Tony event and not do anything. And Marshall introduced me to Paul Pellinger, who helped create the mental health and drug court system. He was friends with Richie Supa, who was a former touring member of Aerosmith and many other people. And they had this idea of using music as a catalyst for therapy. And I said, look, if we could just help my own family, this will be worth doing. That was the goal when we started 10 years ago. Proud of my mother-in-law, my sister-in-law, and other people who are public about, their challenges they've overcome. And that's how we started. So it was just a Fort Lauderdale 20-bed facility. And as of this week, I just was checking before we spoke, we just passed 13,700 people whose life we saved over the last decade.
Wow. It's amazing how our pain can become our purpose.
Much so. It was, when I look back at, buying burial plots for several family members that were just going to die. And the fact that, last week or 2 weeks ago, my kids did a sleepover at Nana's house, who is doing fantastic now and helping others. And, my sister-in-law and others that are just, alive, well, and flourishing. It is incredible to see how far they've come. Unfortunately, not everybody's been able to do that. There is no, cure to the disease of addiction, but we're doing our best every day to help as many as we can.
Yeah. And when people, it looks like you guys have outpatient programs on all different levels, depending on what somebody needs.
Yeah, we have both inpatient and outpatient. So we have detox centers, residential centers, outpatient centers. Over the last year and a half, we launched a pretty robust online Zoom outpatient program. So, for example, we're in South Florida, Austin, Nashville, DC, and now Jersey. And in 2024, we'll be in Charleston, South Carolina as well. But when somebody comes to our program, we know when somebody's with us, they're going to be okay. That's just always. The challenge is when they leave, right? They go back to wherever they were. And so, we have an outpatient program, but if you can't, for example, if somebody comes to our Austin facility, but they live in Lubbock or Odessa, or they come to South Florida, but they live in Central Florida, we now have the ability to work with them on our outpatient program online. And so that's been a game changer in being able to keep people in the ecosystem, because we know that nobody gets better in 30 days, right? The 30-day model was created by insurance companies to limit their costs. But that's, one of the biggest challenges that we face in all of, treatment is most people spend the first 29 of the 30 days not wanting to be there, and they get about a day of treatment. What we found very early on, and we're grateful for, is that using music as a catalyst for therapy, we're able to break down the defenses and build rapport within 24 to 48 hours. So by day 2, 3 at the latest, we made that connection. Doesn't mean it's going to work, but at least we made the connection that will allow them to get the treatment that they came to get for the next 30 or 60 days with us. And then one of the other things that I'm excited for is we're going to be launching next week a beta testing metaverse-based therapy as well, so that when people are, if they want to come to our outpatient on Zoom, they could do that. If they want to show up in person, they could do that. And then we're going to have a virtual reality-based outpatient as well for those that want to do that.
Oh, wow. Virtual reality is hitting us everywhere in this world now, even in recovery.
Hey, listen, I believe in meeting people where they're at. And
Yeah.
so, I personally may not understand or want to put on the headset, but a 22-year-old that is struggling, that doesn't want to sit in a room with people, doesn't want to see their face online, but could play a video game for 3 days straight, that may be the best situation for them. So I'm open to whatever is potentially going to work.
Got it. And are you guys working with a certain type of rehab, or are you doing all rehab?
Okay, so we use evidence-based therapy. So we have cognitive
Okay.
behavioral therapy, motivational interviewing, EDMRT. Any type of evidence-based therapy, we utilize that. But we use music to break down defenses and build rapport. So, for example, if somebody is coming to us, in addition to finding out, their insurance and their medical information and what they're struggling with, we find out the type of music they love, they hate, what they associate to getting high, what they associate to sobriety. And so the first interaction with them, we may have a song that they'll associate positively to playing when they show up or in the van or in the car. And for the first time in days, weeks, months, or years, that person, and we've seen this over 10,000 times, literally, will say, uh, I love this song. We know. And so it's that they're heard, they're seen. What they say matters, right? Instead of being
Yep.
yelled at by a spouse or a loved one or arrested or thrown out of work. And so those little micro distinctions make the difference in us allowing to have the evidence-based treatment work.
Got it. Got it. Now, when somebody is brought into the facility and then is released back to their residence, which could be, the environment that they came from, are you working with the family and the different relationships there to try to help that ease back in?
Completely. We have
Okay.
a family program, both, again, prior to COVID, everything was geographically located, including our own staff, right? Everybody had to be in a certain place, and the people we worked with were within a, call it 50-mile radius if somebody could come. After COVID, and like we're doing right now, we are able to reach so many more people. And on the family side, it's even more incredible because now, somebody comes to our treatment center and they may have a parent, a sibling, a spouse, a child, whatever it may be, in a different state or multiple states. And now we could, which we do, we get on a Zoom with a family group, and we'll do that weekly with them, depending on the dynamic. Because again, during the first month or two that they're with us, they're figuring out their own situation, but now they have to deal with what got them there, what challenge they overcome, the trauma they overcame, and then go forward with it. So yes, we work with the family. We have a great family program. We do quarterly try and bring families together in person, but if that can't work out for logistic or financial reasons, we come online and we'll work with the families as best as we can.
Got it. Now, you've been able to help a lot of your family, which is what started this whole thing. How do you think you stayed out of the addiction piece and other people around you did not?
So, with my personal families, my wife's family that had the biggest challenges, and
Okay.
even with my wife, she was, because she saw what she saw, she was afraid of medication most of her life because of all the struggles to this day. My wife had back surgery, 3 C-sections, but I got to force her to take a Tylenol, these days and always, because she watched what happened with multiple family members. And so, the environment, and I'm very grateful that, the environment I've been surrounded with most of my life, in the personal development world, has allowed and helped me, keep the mindset right. That being said, we know that there's a genetic component to this, right? If I just look at my wife's grandmother, mother, sisters, right? Like there's that, and then there's the social factors. So we've seen both sides of it, where you have generational addiction and alcoholism in families, and then you have, unfortunately, over the last 2 decades, and we've seen it with all the lawsuits with the pharmaceutical companies. I mean, people that had zero. I have a friend, close friend, that zero addiction in the family from any side of the family. Got hurt his back. When we were in college, got prescribed the OxyContin, and fast forward 7-8 years is shooting heroin, and this is just The family couldn't understand. Nobody could understand where this came from. So you have, the genetic side that we deal with, and then you also have just the social side of getting prescribed medication, which people do need, but that
Yeah.
could go off in dangerous places as well.
Yeah. Now, if somebody that doesn't have the family history but is prescribed the medication and then somehow heads down the dark tunnel, um, is that brain changed forever? Like, are they
No,
going to be more prone to addiction again, or is that just a hey, once we get this thing fixed, we're good?
well, there's different things that happen, right? So you have, with the brain receptors, especially with opiates, there is a chemical change that occurs, but that can be, changed back and over time with therapy, um, come back to where you're okay. Now, will that allow somebody to go back down, a different path? You know, there's not enough data at this point to prove that, right? So you've had, I'll give the marijuana case at this point, since it's everywhere now, right? So marijuana is legal in 30 states, and so I've seen people that have used medical marijuana uh, safely for the last decade. And I've seen people that have gotten psychosis from strong marijuana. We've treated people lately, especially the past year, mostly younger people that didn't know what they were getting or didn't understand the difference and have literally had psychotic episodes. So some people, it's been a lifesaver because they don't want to be on Xanax or other medications. And so they've
Yep.
used medical marijuana. And it's a drug like anything else. It can be beneficial like other medications, and it can be dangerous like other medications. But the point being that we've seen people that have been able to come off of heroin, for example, and we use Vivitrol, which is a opiate blocker. We were the first people in Texas and Florida, and the largest provider of it over a decade ago. And people were like, "You guys are giving one drug instead of another," and I said, "No, no, this is a 28-day shot. You can't get high for 28 days, and we're teaching people how to stay clean." And now it's one of the most widely used medications. Same thing with Suboxone. Now, some people have taken Suboxone to replace the heroin addiction. So now they take that forever. We don't believe, and everybody's different, that you need to be on anything forever with the right therapy. But we do wholeheartedly believe, I believe, and so does our doctors, that if you need to be on something, Vivitrol for 6 months, Suboxone for a year, and that will allow you to stay clean and sober while you learn to be clean and sober, then fine. Because for us, it's about life or death right now.
Yeah.
One of the things we've seen my first 8 years in this, somebody would relapse, they drink too much, they'd go on a run, whether it was opiates or meth or whatever it may be, and then they'd come back, right? The last 24 months, really 18 months, people are dying more now than ever because they relapse, especially on opiates, and fentanyl one time dead. It's horrible, and we're seeing it weekly and sometimes daily.
Where's fentanyl coming from and how is it getting into the systems?
I mean, we know that fentanyl is mass produced in China.
Okay.
How it gets here and all of the flood of fentanyl, it's so powerful and so small, right? That it's easy to transport. The problem is on every level. Now, fentanyl's been around for a long time, right? The hospitals have been using fentanyl for years, right?
Yeah,
And
don't they
there's
use it like for like a diet drug for a long time or something?
I don't know how the diet drugs is. So I know that there's a good case use for fentanyl in severe pain situations and burn situations that I personally had. So I understand that aspect of it. The challenge is you get this tiny amount of fentanyl, and you have people that are lacing pills and heroin supply with it, and these are not trained college degree chemists, right? And so you just have people eyeballing what should go into a batch of something, and just people dying every day, and it's crazy. But this is what's happening on a daily basis right now. It is it doesn't matter where you are, it doesn't matter who you are, it's everywhere. So limiting the flow of fentanyl will definitely save lives. Educating people on the dangers of street drugs. I just go to when I was in college, right? People would go out, they go to party, they smoke or drink or take something, they may get sick and they'll wake up. Now they die.
We always hear of cases here, right? Like somebody got turned in with fentanyl and something, and letting, like, the police will send a message like fentanyl's laced in marijuana right now or whatever, and keep an eye on it, and da 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 da. It's crazy. It's crazy how that's all gone to where it's
Well,
going.
that's why. Look, the case for Oregon, um, I, they've got a little too crazy. So you have a huge debate right now going on about legalization, right? I'm for people having the right to do whatever they want and the freedom to choose if they know what they're actually choosing. Most people, almost anybody that takes a drink, if they drink a beer or take a shot, they know what they're getting, right? At this point, most people understand what their body can handle. With legalized marijuana, at least if you get it from a legal shop, they're going to explain to you what you're getting. Oregon now legalized like almost all drugs, but people don't even understand what they are. So I'm looking at it as if people actually can get, legal whatever, and people know what's in it, that's going to be safer. Portugal has a great case study, smaller population, but when they legalized drugs, the first 24 months was crazy, and then the last 15 years has been great. Lower kids, lower amount of people do drugs now than ever before there. Again, smaller group of people. I've looked at that and read that just in understanding, the future of what's going to happen here, because I believe that if things are um, regulated, that it will be better.
Yeah. Yeah. Okay, so talk to us about your barbecue fire in 2021. Like, what happened here? And did you have to go on drugs for that?
So in 2021, we were in the middle of COVID. It subsided for a moment, so I decided to invite a bunch of friends over and just said, "Hey, everybody kind of has been hiding away, or some people have. Let's all get together. Those that want to come inside my house can. Those that want to hang out outside by the pool can." And invited a bunch of friends over, and 25 people were there. Unfortunately, there was a propane leak, and a friend of mine had walked over to help barbecue with me. And when he pushed the button to turn on the barbecue, it blew up. There was a huge explosion to the point where the Ring app sent out an alert that there was a gas explosion. Please avoid 2 mile radius. Um, me and him both were on fire. Thank God. Looking back, a minute before that, my son and my friend's 4-year-old daughter were standing up there. They would be dead today if they were there. So, me and him did blow up. Ended up at the Ryder Burn unit at Jackson Memorial for a while. Was in the ICU for a week. The most painful thing that I've ever dealt with. Definitely was not in my summer plans. But looking, funny now, I guess, but one of the first things that I was put on when I got to the hospital was fentanyl.
Yeah.
I read my chart, afterwards, and had I not had the treatment that I got with just the level of technology at the Ryder Burn unit, top in the country, had I not got that, I had first degree, second degree, third degree on my feet, I may not be here today. They
Wow.
saved the doctor saved my life. It was extremely painful. I still have issues wearing anything on my feet. So people, when they don't know my story, they see me in a suit with flip flops and just think that's what South Florida people do. And I stopped correcting them because it's kind of fun. So I still have, nerve pain daily, but I'm able to function. I live, I travel, I work, I keep moving forward. But yeah, it was pretty crazy that having to, go in the hospital and deal with the pain of the burns was the most challenging thing I ever dealt with. I am, again, grateful. If I didn't have the doctors and treatment that I have, I wouldn't be here. And if I didn't have the 20 something years of personal development, I also wouldn't be here because I left, a little earlier than they like. I stopped taking medicines a lot earlier than they like. I believe that it's a combination of everything in life.
Mm-hmm.
I believe in Western medicine, and I get acupuncture every week. I believe that if they didn't do the procedures they did, I wouldn't be able to walk. And I also believe if I didn't, go through my priming every morning that I do with, the Tony Robbins app or the stuff I learned from Jack Canfield or the law of attraction with Esther Hicks, I also wouldn't be, able to function the way that I do today. And so I am grateful for that. I am grateful for everybody that helped me and everything that I learned along the way and continue to learn.
Yeah, I can imagine. Like sometimes those events that happen in our lives, they remind us of what we are, like we're human, right? We need to be held accountable. We have different systems that work for us that keep us in the lane that we want to be driving and don't derail where we might head down a different path. How did your friend end up?
He's doing okay. I had the most issues on my foot. He had the most issues on his arm, just the way we were standing.
Okay.
Ironically, he's the captain of the Fort Lauderdale Fire Department.
Oh, wow.
So, yeah, I mean, again, once we were alive, there was lots of jokes about that. And he's doing okay. He's actually doing great. Sometimes you don't know where the world or what happens to you will change your trajectory in the world. And so, because he wasn't able to be on the truck for 8 months, he ended up getting another degree. He's now teaching disaster prevention in certain embassies all over Central and South America.
Wow.
He's the battalion chief now. So you just never know how things could go. And so, we joke about it now. We talk, once a week, and we're both grateful to be alive. And yeah, we both have seen where that may have put us on a different, short-term trajectory in our lives, and how beneficial, we've made it. Because you could take out any situation, as you know, with
Yeah.
yours, and go down a path of why this happened to me in a negative way,
Right.
or why this happened to me in a positive way. What can I take from this to grow, to learn, to help others? And so that's how both of us have used the situation.
Yeah. And what do you think played a key role in you being able to not have the victim mentality in that and be able to extract the lessons and carry forward in such a healthy way?
I mean, look, I've spent my life in the personal development world. I've been grateful that when I was a kid, my best friend Grant, his father Steve Einhorn, one of my mentors, he brought me to see Zig Ziglar when I was 14, Les Brown when I was 16, and sent me to my first Tony Robbins seminar in, I believe, 2021. And so, and I was listening to Tony's tapes from my Uncle Jerry since I was also 16. So that mindset, just, I've carried that through high school, college. I mean, it's not always been, it's funny. I was talking to somebody recently. We were joking, my friend's 45th birthday, about how I was so, with the right mindset, but sometimes going above my limitations. I tried to play football when I was in high school. I made the team because I refused to get off the field, but I also separated my heel bone because, you know, my size wasn't made out for it. And the doctor said I had a better chance of owning a team than playing for one. So
Nice. I
you,
don't think that's a compliment. I would take that as a
yeah,
compliment.
but you also
Totally.
have to, at 15 years old, you have to understand where that goes. But I
Yeah.
truly believe that the idea, and I know that you adhere to this from what I've read and learned about you, that you could take, the mindset of, life is happening, for me, not to me. And I've done my best to live like that. Doesn't mean it's going to be great all the time. I tell people all the time, and they say, how do you get through it? How's it so easy? It's not easy. I have, challenges every day, and I use my process in the morning and in the night, especially since my accident, to just get up, right? It is a challenge every day for everybody, but there's two ways you could go about it, right? If you're going to be in, part of this world, part of the society, and be productive, you got to keep moving forward. And whatever that means for you, everybody has different ways of doing it. You have to do that, because if not, you end up, angry, blaming everybody for everything, and it's a downward spiral. So I try to encourage my family, my friends, and our staff. Recovery Unplugged. I've now brought over 200 plus of our team members through Tony Robbins UPW. It's an employee benefit now over the last decade, and as well as other different things. I tell everybody, if there's something that you believe will help benefit you, education wise and personal development wise, I'm all for it, because especially with what we do, we're dealing with really challenging situations on a daily basis, and about 70% of our staff are recovering addicts themselves.
Wow.
So it's what can we do to keep our mind right? And even with all of that, it's a challenge,
Right.
you know,
Right.
uh, every day. And that's where right now, over the past 2023, we got so many requests for people that had mental health issues, not drug or alcohol issues, anxiety, depression, and PTSD. So we launched an online Recovery Unplugged Mental Health Institute online. Our same program we use for drug and alcohol addiction, we're now doing for mental health online. And I'm very excited that we just signed the lease to open up our first inpatient mental health only facility here in South Florida in the beginning of 2024.
Wow. And what type, and so the mental health things that those people have, they have crippling anxiety or depression or things that are just keeping them from living a normal day. How does how does someone get classified as that?
Well, I mean, there's different ways of people have diagnosed, but you have on the anxiety, on the depression side, right? People that are manic depressive or bipolar, clinically bipolar. On the anxiety side, people that can't go outside, or they're so challenged to be going in front of people or leaving their house or taking care of their kids for that matter. On the PTSD side, it's all trauma related that somebody had. Um, so we've done a lot of work in our Austin location on the mental health side with people from the military out of San Antonio, because we have a contract with TRICARE for active military and the VA for retired military that are battling substance abuse. But we've got so many requests there on the mental health side. We've been doing this online, which is why we're now going to open up the inpatient facility, because there's a ton of unfortunate trauma on the military side, and then just people that are living day to day, with depression for whatever reason, anxiety for multiple reasons. I think, unfortunately, people are more anxious today than they've ever been. First you had COVID, which, regardless of your view on it, it made everybody anxious. You have the politics, whatever your politics are, makes everybody anxious. You have what's going on in the world, which makes everybody anxious. So I'm grateful that we have access to information now more than ever, but that access allows you to get information and disinformation at the same time, and this
Yeah.
causes people to be more volatile, more angry, more anxious, and more depressed. So we're dealing with that and seeing that on every level, from the teenage level to the adult level to the senior level.
Yeah. No, I'm definitely noticing it even with my children, right? Like what is going on here. And we just spend a lot of time unplugging where I take them to places where there's no option for internet and Wi-Fi and getting out of the noise of the world so they can recalibrate and use their inner compass as a guide instead of this outer map that we're provided.
That is awesome, and I love that you do that. If I think back to my trips with
Yeah.
my kids, like I took my kids for New Year's last year. I have two boys and a girl. My son's 15, 13, two boys, and my daughter's now 9. But last December, I took them right before the North Pole to the top of Norway to a reindeer farm
Oh,
for New Year's, and so um, not good Wi-Fi out there.
I know.
It was dark for 5 days. It was absolutely fantastic. In the cabin, I was able to, we were outside, going on the dog sled and looking at the Northern Lights. But then we got back to the room. We were able to watch. We watched like Home Alone on Christmas. It was fun. And New Year's, and those trips and being away. I also did a trip to the Galapagos where
Mhm.
we stayed in a tent on the side of a mountain, and no Wi-Fi, no internet. That was just my boys a couple years ago. That was one of our favorite trips ever, just to be out and disconnected and together. So I
Yeah.
agree with that. You know, where we live in our neighborhood on Shabbat from Friday night to Saturday night, we disconnect and do our best to connect to the people, not the outside world.
Yeah. 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 Those little things help. So with your staff being almost 70% um, addicts in their past as well, how has them being able to help and coach and mentor people where they were keep them on like the path of doing well? I mean, I have to imagine that's a huge benefit for everybody.
It has been transformational. When I look today, one of the things that I'm most proud about is I have a couple of people, multiple now, that 10 years ago were clients
Yep.
that then you have to stay clean for at least 12 to 18 months before we'll hire you, that came back and worked at minimum wage behavioral health techs, that now I have two of my executive leader sorry, three of my executive leadership team that came through 10 years ago that are running teams of 10 to 40 people now, that are 9 and 10 years clean, now married, now have kids, or one in particular were able to get back custody of her kids and are just doing absolutely amazing and helping others. I mean, that to me is like, I couldn't have imagined that when we started this. And then for everybody else, it's a daily, them being able to help others allows them to stay in. It's not 100%. There is no
Yeah.
100%. Over
Right.
the years, we've had people that have fallen off as well, and had to go back through the program and did. But for the most part, it's been extremely beneficial to them and others that see there is a way. Right,
Yep.
when somebody's early on, especially they get out of detox, doesn't count because they're just out of it normally. But once they get to the residential program and the initial intensive outpatient program, for them to see people that have been there, done it, that are alive, well, clean, sober, and thriving now, right in front of them,
Yeah.
it's incredible.
Yeah, no, I can imagine. I talk a lot about going from a life of success to a life of significance, right? And success for me is something that I've accomplished, right? Or something that you've done, but it becomes significant when you can share it with others, where when part of your story relates to somebody else and they have that aha moment in their own story and now can make more possible for themselves. So I think success is important, but significance is really where we all shine.
That is the goal: is to allow people to see what you've done, so they can allow them to accomplish what they want to accomplish.
Yeah.
One of the great gifts I learned very early on. So my friend Steve, who brought me to the personal development world, he was in Amway back in the '80s,
Oh
multi-level
yeah, I
marketing.
grew up in Michigan. I'm very familiar with Amway.
And so, yeah, I mean, when I was a freshman at University of Florida, I had my own like store in my dorm room of products that people could get munchies in the middle of the night. But one of the key components I learned from very early on was that if you're successful, you only are successful if you help others become successful.
Yep.
And so I watched people become very successful in that world, in that industry, and their success was only based on other people becoming successful. And so I try and adhere to that in everything that we do, personally and professionally, with our team, with our staff, and with our lives. And that, you if you are doing great but other people around you aren't, then what's the point? So it's all about bringing people up, and it's not a straight line. Nothing is linear. There's peaks, there's valleys, there's challenges that everybody goes through. But having the ideal that your success can help others, you know, become who they want to be, that's what we try to adhere to on a daily basis.
Yeah. No, I love it. That's fantastic. Okay, so how do people find you, learn what you guys are doing, what's available to your patients and clients and families that are listening in today?
Sure. So recoveryunplugged.com is our website. We're on Instagram, Facebook, TikTok, LinkedIn. We have a 24-hour life-saving center. If we can't help you, we will find somebody that can. Right now, like I said, we're in Florida, Texas, Tennessee, Virginia, New Jersey, soon to be South Carolina. We have an online program as well in all of those states, which is also going to be expanding to others. But at recoveryunplugged.com, people can see who we are, what we do. I'm old school, so if somebody wants to call us, somebody will answer the phone 24/7, 365. And if somebody just wants to do the chat, there'll be a live person responding on the chat. If they want to text, they can text. We believe in meeting people where they're at. So we have people that come in on Facebook Messenger or Instagram Messenger or Snapchat now. I mean, whatever it may be, we will respond in figuring out how we can help.
It's amazing. Thank you so much for sharing your story today, Andrew. We really appreciate it.